Hello, good morning everyone. Today we are going to learn about introduction to HTML tables and forms. Now, in this presentation, it contains structure of table, table cells, table rows, table headers, spanning of rows and columns, table stylings, creation of forms. Next, coming to the structure of HTML tables. Here, table element is used to create a table in HTML and can be used to represent information that exists in a two-dimensional form. Tables can be used to display calendars, financial data, pricing tables, and many other types of data. And the basic structure of tables are: table contains any number of rows, means TR. Each row contains any number of table data cells, columns. Some browsers do not display borders by default. Many tables will contain some type of headings in the first row. In HTML, you can indicate a header data by using the th element. Browsers will automatically make a content with a th element, means element bold. Next, here is example for structure of tables, where table, company, contact and country are comes in a one row. Alfred Fruitest is Marina and Germany comes in another row. And Centro Commercial, Moctezuma, Francisco Chan and Mexico comes in another row. Next, coming to the table cells. Each table cell is defined by a TD and TD tag. TD stands for table data. Everything between TD and TD are the content of the table cells. Note: a table cell can contain all sorts of HTML elements, text images, lists, links, other tables, etc. The table data email or \td. Next, coming to the table rows. Each table row starts with a tr and ends with a \tr tag, where the tr stands for table row, and the example is given below. You can have as many rows as you like in a table. Just make sure that the number of cells are the same in each row. And the important note is, there are times when a row can have less or more cells than another. You will learn about that in later chapters. Next, coming to the table headers. Sometimes you want your cells to be a table header cells. In those cases, use the th tag instead of the td tag. Here the th stands for the table header. Let the first row be the table header cells, and by default the next in th elements are bold and center, but you cannot change that with CSS code. Next, coming to the additional table elements. The caption element is used to provide a brief title or description of the table, which improves the accessibility of the table. Caption side. CSS property can be used to change the position of the caption below the table. The head, the tag footer and the tag body elements are used for the table header table footer and table body. The column tag and the column group tag elements are mainly used for styling all columns within a column group with a single style. Unfortunately, the properties you can set via these two elements are borders, backgrounds, width and visibility, and only if they are not overridden in a table data, table headers or table thread element. Next, coming to the spanning of rows and columns. To make cell span over multiple rows, use the row span attribute. The example is given below for the row span. Next, coming to the HTML table call span means column span. To make a cell span over multiple columns, use the call span attribute. By using call span attribute, we are given an example below. Next, coming to the tables links. Table borders. HTML tables can have borders of different styles and shapes. How to add a border? When you add a border to a table, you also add a border around each table cells. To add the border, the CSS border property on table that table header and table data elements. Here the example for the given table header and table data by adding a borders. Next, coming to the HTML table sizes. HTML tables can have a different sizes for each column, row or the entire table. Use the style attribute with the width or height properties to specify the size of the table, row or column. Example is given below that set the width of the table to 100%. Then table style is equals to width 100%. Then table row. Table header contains a first name and ends with the table header. And also it contains a last name and ends with the table header. It also contains a age, but in table rows it contains a Jill, Smith and 50 are the names of that members. HTML table width. To set the width of the table, add the style attribute to the table element. Next, coming to the HTML table zebra stripes. If you add a background color on every other table row, you will get a nice zebra stripes effect. To style every other table row element, use the nth child event selector like this. And the example is given below. Hoverable table. Use the hoverable selector on TR table row to highlight the table rows on mouse over. Next, coming to HTML forms. An HTML form is used to collect a user input. The user input is most often sent to a server for processing. The document type HTML and the body and HTML forms. From the action page is listed from the label for first name and input type text ID, label for second name and last name, input type for text ID and input type submit value submit is the example. The form element. The HTML tag form tag element is used to create an HTML form for user input. In form tag form from form elements and the backslash form tag from element is a container for different types of input elements such as text fields, checkboxes, radio buttons, submit buttons, etc. The input element. The HTML input tag element is the most used for element. An input element can be displayed in many ways depending on the type attribute. Type attribute means input type is equals to text. Displays a single line text input field. Input type radio is equals to radio. Displays the radio button for selecting a one of many choices. Input type checkbox displays a checkbox for selecting a zero or more of many choices. Input type submit displays a submit button for submitting the form. Input type button displays a clickable button. Next, coming to the text fields. The input type text defines a single line input field for the text input. Here the document type is HTML and body contains H2 text input fields. Form Label form is equals to first name and input type is equals to text ID means a first name, and label form is last name and input type text ID is equals to last name, and p tag is note that the form itself is not visible. Next, coming to the label element. Notice the use of the label element in the example above. The label tag defines a label for many form elements. The label tag element is useful for screen reader users because the screen reader will read out loud the label when the user focuses on the input element. The label element also helps users who have difficulty clicking on very small regions such as radio buttons or checkboxes, because when the user clicks within the label element, it toggles the radio button or checkbox. The for attribute of the label tag should be equal to the ID attribute of the input tag element to bind them together. Radio buttons. The input type is equals to radio defines a radio button. The radio buttons let a user select one of the limited number of choices. And here the example for radio buttons. And checkboxes. The input type is equals to checkbox defines a checkbox. The checkboxes let the user to select a zero or more options of a limited number of choices, and it contains the document type as HTML and body contains the checkboxes and so on. Next, coming to the submit button. The input type submit defines a button for submitting the form data to a form handler. The form handler is typically a file on the server with a script for processing input data. The form handler is specified in the form's action attribute, and the document type is HTML and the body contains HTML forms, form action, and label for first name, input text ID, last name, and submit value. The name attribute for input. Notice that each input field must have a name attribute to be submitted. If the name attribute is omitted, the value of the input field will be not sent at all. And here also the document type is HTML and body contains a form action, label for first name, input type for text ID is equals to first name value, and input type is equals to submit value submit, and tap tag p. If you click the submit button, the form data will be sent to on a page called action page php, and notice that the value of the first name field will not be submitted because the input element does not have a name attributes.